Hey guys, Jacques Slade here, and this week Jordan Brand officially released the first colorway of the Air Jordan 34. If you happen to catch my first video on the shoe, you know I focused a lot on the tech and why Jordan Brand made some of the decisions they made on the shoe. But for this go round, I was able to actually get my hands on a pair of the shoes and wanted to give you a deeper breakdown of the shoe and speak more about the future of basketball at Jordan and where Jordan really plans to take it. The past few years have seen Jordan Brand take inspiration from the 30-year sibling for the aesthetics of the signature shoe, and while they do that a little bit with this model, it isn't anywhere near as obvious, which I think sets the shoe apart from its predecessors. I don't say that to dismiss the historical significance of like the Air Jordan 4, which is easily one of my favorites in the Jordan line, especially the Fear colorway. I like a future that steps away from the legacy and lets the line live on its own and really lets the retro line live in the past, which is where I feel like it should live. Drawing comparisons to past models, the Air Jordan 34 is a lot lighter than you'd expect. Jordan Brand has thrown around the 13-ounce number and was quoted as saying the model was the lightest signature shoe the brand has ever made, but you really don't see how much of a difference that is until you actually get the shoe in your hand. Weight has never really been a factor for me when it comes to basketball sneakers, but these are surprisingly light, but still feel like, that they'll hold up over the season. As you probably saw, Zion will be wearing the 34 on court this season, so Jordan Brand has their hands full when it comes to durability, in my opinion. I only weigh around 185 pounds, so I don't worry that I'm going to trash these, but if you're playing consistently and pushing that 225 and up world, you might need to pay a bit more attention, but I'm not terribly concerned in total. And speaking of durability, Jordan Brand switched things up a bit on the upper of the 34. Past models have used more premium materials to help solidify the premium aspect of the brand, but this model doesn't take things in that direction. The upper is comprised of a thin mesh material that extends from the ankle to the toe box. Jordan has said that the 34 is, and I quote, an exercise in reductive design which can be taken two ways depending on who you are. One is that Jordan Brand has been doing too much with the previous models, and the 34 offers up the opportunity to strip away some of the excess that comes along with presenting your brand as premium. Or on the other side of the spectrum, you have the performance focus that looks to build a sleeker, more streamlined product that focuses less on the perception of luxury and more on the performance, which at the end of the day is what really matters. We've gotten to a point where we all know that Jordan represents the best that basketball has to offer in terms of culture and basketball, and I think what we all want to know now is what's the best when it comes to performance. The rest of the upper on the Jordan 34 is pretty minimal. We have some fuse at the toe, some fuse at the ankle, and a few rivets to help hold the shoe together at the heel and near the eyelets. But if you're looking at the heel, we see probably the third most interesting thing about the shoe, the decoupled or separated heel and ankle section. This holds the heel counter, which is really what keeps you locked in and holds your ankle in place. From wearing these around, I did experience a bit of discomfort with the inner pieces of the counter because they aren't embedded into like the side walls. If you allow for those sections to bend, they can become a little bit of an irritant. The fix is pretty simple and you just need to straighten it out with your finger, but you can imagine how much of a hassle that can be if you're in the middle of a game and these side pieces move around. It isn't like the tongue where you can just give it a tug and everything is fine. This requires a little more work. The fix would be for me to integrate these sections into the fabric on the sidewall, which I don't think would take away from the performance aspect of the shoe. And since we're talking about that heel counter on the shoe, the 34 is going to be pretty unique in that Jordan Brand is planning to switch up the logo on the heel of the shoe. Most of the pairs will feature the Jumpman logo, but the pairs with a reference to the past, well, they'll feature the Nike Air logo, something that I think sneakerheads that have been in the game for a while will definitely appreciate. Jordan is also adding small details that help highlight each model. This pair in particular is called Eclipse and originally thought the moon icons on the lateral portion of the outsole near the toe were unique to this model, but I think that's on all of the upcoming colorways, so I think that story is just told through the Jumpman logo on the heel. Maybe I was wrong about that. But let's get to the meat of the Air Jordan 34, which is the Eclipse Plate. Ever since the Air Jordan 29, Jordan Brand has been at the top of the list when it comes to basketball tech. Aside from the, Adapt BB with the self-lacing, nothing has really touched the inventiveness of the Jordan 29 and 28. In fact, it is the shoe that I still wear to play ball in because of the materials on the upper and the tech in the midsole. For the 34, we're seeing the evolution of the flight plate with the Eclipse Plate. It's a two-piece system that allows the zoom unit in the forefoot and in the heel to react in a way that we haven't seen before. In fact, we can even see the zoom unit through the plate, which looks a little weird, but I also admit that I kind of like it. The new design was created to produce a smoother transition from the midfoot to the forefoot, which from walking around in the shoes, you can feel almost instantly. The zoom unit in the forefoot is actually firm enough to provide some resistance to your foot strike, but it's also responsive enough to give you a bit of bounce when you need it. As a smaller player, the impact protection of the heel unit really doesn't provide as much for me. I don't have that requirement, but the 4-foot zoom being unlocked and between that P-backs plate, it allows for a lot of different players to rock these and get what they need out of it. Like Zion and I are two completely different players. We play two different games, but I feel like we both could walk out on the floor in the Jordan 34 and play without restriction. Talking to the Jordan team, they wanted to create a silhouette that could bridge the gap and let players really be the best versions of themselves, and the setup in this sneaker, I feel like it meets a lot of those requirements. In many ways, what Jordan Brand is doing with the Jordan 34 is a bit of a risk for the brand. The Jordan signature shoe is the top of the line, and it's supposed to represent everything Jordan Brand is about. By taking away materials and opening up the midsole, they're showing us that they're willing to step outside of the norm and put a focus on performance. Take the Cove. That really defines how we look at the Eclipse Plate. The spaceship-looking design is futuristic, and yet it still plays a key part in how the entire package comes together. So yes, it looks good, but it also reduces weight. And you know, P-backs, which is essentially a thermoplastic elastomer, it's lightweight, but it's also adjustable, meaning Jordan Brand can control the flexibility of the two pieces to create what they feel is the perfect rigidity. Having the early success with the Air Jordan 28 and the 29 and beyond, Jordan has had plenty of time to really fine-tune that flexibility, and from what I can tell, they got it right. And though I do really hate to see it go, the new setup makes it difficult to use the lacing system from last year's model, which I honestly believe is a superior method. When it comes to game time situations, listen, it may not look as nice, but it does provide a better lockdown than laces in my opinion. As I said before, I haven't really had a chance to really give these a full go on the court, but the traction here is top notch and you can tell. The rubber gives you enough play to really make it work both inside and out, and the pattern is aggressive enough to bite down when you need it to. They have also rolled it up around the upper as well for those smaller guards that need the extra grip when you're cutting and driving to the hole, you know, kind of like my game, or not. I know earlier I said that Jordan Brand is focused on the future, but there are a few things now that I have them in hand that make me reflect back on the Jordan 4. The use of the mesh on the upper reminds me of the windows on the Jordan 4. There's the big patch on the heel that leans right into the design language of the Jordan 4. The tongue with the Jumpman logo and the word flight and the script from the Air Jordan 4 is also a hint to the legacy of the brand. We also have 434 numerology on the heel on the back of the shoe, acknowledging the years both pairs were released. Small hints that really don't overpower the design is the best way for me to do it, and I think they aced it with this one. On one hand, the Air Jordan 34 loses some of the complicated design elements we've seen in the past, but in the same breath, we get a slimmer, more defined sneaker that focuses its energy on one thing and one thing only: basketball. It is, in a sense, a throwback to when basketball shoes were just that, basketball shoes. And the off-court part of the equation, that came later when people watched players perform and wanted a piece of the life through their sneakers. This, I think, is Jordan Brand getting back in touch with that basketball feeling. The Air Jordan 34 is available now for $180 and we'll have a few different colorways dropping over the next several weeks and months. It's an exciting time for Jordan Brand with Zion in the roster and a new performance-focused model in the wheelhouse. Let's just see if they can execute down the stretch. So those are my thoughts now that I have the sneaker in hand and I've had a chance to quickly wear them around a bit. Let me know what you guys think of the shoe. I'm Jacques Slade and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.